If you are listening to this podcast, it means you are searching for someone who understands you, someone who gets you. You are yearning to be understood and to belong. Welcome to the Someone Gets Me podcast, where we help smart, talented, and sensitive people navigate an often insensitive world. Let's welcome your host, ambassador, author, speaker, and mentor, Diane Allen. Diane has the experience and knowledge to educate and inspire, as she has been there and understands your unique intensities and their challenges.
Hey everybody, it's Diane again, and I have the coolest person here for you to meet today. His name is Brian Ritter, and I met him several months ago at a really cool Podfest meeting, and we spoke, and I really liked him, and then it all came back around now that my podcast is live to actually have him on the show with you today. He is an energetic arts healer. He is also a medicine man and a lyrical philosopher. Like, we could stop there and talk for hours. How cool is that? He also shares a very unique way of accessing your spirituality through a alchemical blend of Tai Chi, Qigong, meditation, and breathwork, of which I do all of these, and they're wonderful. He's also an herbalist with a very, very extensive knowledge on how to heal you through nutrition. He shares insights and wisdom through the spoken word poetry and hip-hop lyrics. Now, that's my favorite part. Overall, his stated purpose in the world is to awaken people to their divine nature and to cultivate heaven on earth. So welcome to the Someone Gets Me podcast, Brian. I'm so happy you're here.
Oh, thank you so much, Diane. I'm so happy to be here. Wow, what a nice intro.
Well, it's so wonderful because I always work with all my people on understanding that there's so much more going on than from the neck up and in our own little head about thinking. Oh. And here you are, a gifted, intelligent person bringing in all of these other pieces to make this just amazing combination. So I'm so happy you're here.
And the fact that this is what you've been interested in, it's so perfect right now, because thinking is highly overrated. Just let's put that out there first. And the idea of trying to solve mental issues, your mental challenges using the mind is kind of crazy. Because I promise your mind can outsmart your mind any day of the week. In fact, the mind loves to have these little tricks and traps and chutes and ladders, and it'll lead you in the right direction and make you feel good for a day, and then it'll drop you right back again because, quite frankly, your mind is smarter than you by definition. It's just like that. So, I find it's funny. The other day I was talking to a friend who they were having a little bit of a marital dispute. I could see her going into this state, she was yelling and screaming, and she'd made up the entire situation. There was nothing in reality that she was actually paying attention to, but she made up this situation. It triggered her, and then she started freaking out, and it was all mind, people working with it from mind. Well, have you done I remember just sitting there, and I started looping my hands around just to break the to break the feeling in the room and kind of get everybody out of their roles and out of this back and forth and conflict. And I was just like, mind. Yep, this'll work. We should all just solve all of our mental problems with more mental problems. Yeah, good idea. And, everybody just kind of like, ooh, wait, what? It's like, all right, good. Now that I've got your attention, let's zip down below the neck for a minute and just feel what's actually happening. Where's this coming from? What's the vibration, the tone, as it were, behind everything? I find that tone tends to be the bit that it organizes the thoughts. It tells the brain how to operate and what to start thinking and what mental loops to go into. So yeah, really, really interesting stuff. As you can tell, I've thought a lot about this in my practice and just in my life in general. And a lot of times when I meet with people for the first time, or, depending on where people are, I'll give them a piece of advice that sounds something a whole lot like, your mind is not your friend. It's okay don't worry about it. You don't have to pay attention to all this stuff that's coming up. Just expect your mind to tell you crazy things for a while, and you just focus on what it is that you really want. You just focus on doing something like heart breaths, or I'm sure we'll get into all that in a little bit, but you just focus on the tone, focus on what you're up to, and expect that the mind is going to freak out for a while, because it really likes playing that control drama with you at this moment. Eventually, when your mind and your ego realize that, hey, we're all better off when we're in this thing together, then you can start developing a relationship. The mind will get what's important, and slowly it'll become a tool, it'll become useful.
Right. I always tell my clients that their ego is not their amigo. And,
I like it. I know it's bueno.
Right. And that's what the brain does. It tries to outsmart itself. So that's perfect. So share a little bit about how you got where you are. Like, what interested you in all of these different things, and what makes up Brian, and what excites you about helping awaken people? Let people know a little bit about who you are.
Okay. Well, I suppose the story could potentially go back to, I don't know. I guess I've always had a gift of teaching. It's one of those things that's inherent in my being. If I know something, I can figure out a way of getting that knowledge across in a way that people get it. And I think that's the art. A lot of people know a lot of things, but the art of actually passing it on and being able to read other people and realize how to make that happen it can be kind of a lost art. Personally, I had a spiritual awakening. Now, when I go back, I grew up in a super Christian household. Like, grandparents wouldn't go to doctors because there's a line in the Bible, and I've sat through my fair share of hellfire and brimstone and the whole 9 yards with it. And I think overall that was a positive experience, because it did have me, I was praying and I was communicating with the divine all through my life. But as my very nature is one of questioning and not buying what I'm fed, which is, I'm so grateful for. But I think back to when I was really young. I used to draw yin yangs. I was really I wanted to be a ninja in kindergarten, and I don't think I've changed that since then. That's been kind of my long-term life goals, being a ninja. And somewhere around college age, I started asking a lot of tough questions and started getting a lot of really interesting insights. I was led toward meditation books. I had an amazing synchronicity, put the Celestine Prophecy in my hands, which is a book all about how to tap into that synchronicity, the playbook of the universe, or 1,000,001 coincidences that can guide us through life. I've always resonated with martial arts, and slowly and surely my desire to throw fireballs kind of led me into the world of more Tai Chi, Qigong, understanding what these things really are, and eventually into yoga, meditation, that whole kind of thing. I guess a little bit more clearly, I've found periods of life, and it's interesting how it works, that the more challenging my life gets, the more I find myself counting on these energetic practices to keep me sane. So I find that they serve my personal needs in really, really big ways. And I find that I would probably go a little bit crazy, or at least be frustrated and breaking down doors, if I didn't have something to fall back to. So that was the initial boost, that like, wow, I feel really good when I do this. It allows me to just completely connect with the universe and go into these amazing states. And now I've come full circle around to a point where I feel like, even though I'm still a baby, and any of these arts you can dedicate your entire life to and still be a baby in, but I have enough knowledge and enough ability to teach that I can share with normal people, and really share some of the things that have empowered my life to empower their lives, hopefully to empower their communities, and their communities can help empower the world, and we can stop making stupid choices and, you know, start creating what we actually want here, which is possible.
Yes, it is possible. So a lot of people who are gifted and really highly sensitive, which I would think you fit in that category, can often feel like they're like the Lone Ranger, or there's nobody around there that gets them. That's why the name of the podcast is Someone Gets Me, because when people run into me, they go, oh my God, somebody gets me, all the time. Which is kind of neat. And I realize that a lot of us are walking around like we're the flag bearers, but then we don't know where the parade is behind us. It's almost like we're out here out front, you know, and like, are there people behind us? Is there anybody next to us? Like, where is everybody? So have you ever had any experiences like that in your life where you kind of felt like you were not in sync with those around you?
Yeah, I remember this one time from about 5 to 25. Yeah, that pretty much that entire period, I marched to the beat of an entirely different drummer. My nervous system was wired completely different than the people around me, and I tended to care about things on a whole different level than anybody around me. I've been lucky. I've got some friends now who are in that position where they're very sensitive, and they can't seem to find the community around them just because of the geographic location they're at, or something. I've been really lucky in the past few years to connect with an amazing tribe of individuals who, if nothing else, at least understand where I'm coming from and tend to be insightful, thoughtful, spiritual people. So I'm really, really happy about that now.
Oh, that's awesome. Because a lot of people, I think, are still looking for that. Like, where are my people? You know, where's my tribe? And so the show is to help give people hope that there are people everywhere, and we can find our tribe, and that it is possible. You know, that ego trying to tell us we're going to be alone forever and isolated forever is not true. It's not the case at all.
I appreciate that.
You know, that there. I mean, like when we ran into each other, like we both were like, oh, I get you, you get me, blah, blah, blah. And who would have figured it would be at some resort in Orlando at some event? Like,
right.
You know, like it's the most unlikely places that the like-minded and like energetic people run into each other.
Yep, absolutely. And that kind of goes back to that idea of serendipity or synchronicity, where by putting oneself and, you know, this might actually be a fun little segue. You know, you're trying to provide some value for your people. Mm-hmm. At one time, this is one of my favorite stories. I had a business. I was running a superfood smoothie bar, and the entire business around me collapsed. And it was a very sensitive organization, and people didn't seem to get us, but that's a whole different story. I ran into this guy I dubbed later Serendipity Sam. And this is the kind of guy that we drove up to Asheville together. I wanted to learn from him. And he tells me one day to drop him off the side of the road in the Blue Ridge Parkway, just figure out my own arrangements for a couple days, and he'd meet me back up. So I did, not really sure exactly what to do. Next day, I'm at a coffee shop. I realize I have to move my car. So I jump out, take a spin around the block, and there's Sam. As I hit a red light, there's Sam walking up to my car. Perfect step, just, you know, opens the door, jumps in like, good, I'm glad you're here, and continues. And I wanted to learn from him, how does he do this? You know, what is the magic? I've been living by synchronicity for a long time at this point, but not like that. And he basically told me that he was, what he would do is meditate in the morning, and he called it a feeling of oneness. So to just hit this place where he gets this feeling of oneness with the universe, then he would let the universe know that he was willing to serve. That here I am, I've got these gifts for people, I'm ready to serve, put me in the right place. And he would go out, and he called it following the light. And in Sam's case, he was very non-threatening, and he could pretty much walk up to anybody, and he would, if he noticed somebody that he'd seen somewhere else, or their face just looked familiar, they looked like they had a glow to them, or if he saw a coffee shop that had stuck in his thoughts the day before, he just kind of follow that energetic path and assume that there were lots of people around looking for whatever his services were. And it's absolutely amazing the kind of, the things that we ran into. And since then, I've been doing that. I go to a lot of festivals to teach. And I find, by the way, that those are really amazing places. They tend to bring out a whole bunch of sensitives, and that there's something that happens when you get a lot of people in one area who are A, open, B, have a little bit of time on their hands, and they're like, we're all kind of in this mind sphere, that a lot of serendipity can happen very, very quickly. A lot of amazing meetings will pop up in the strangest of ways. And it's incredible, that feeling of going around and being of service at a place like that, wherever it might be. Personally, I find that the most fulfilling thing I could possibly do.
Yes. For me, that's my entire life, is how can I serve? And I love that, following the light. Like, I love serendipity, Sam. I don't even know him, but like, that is I think the way to live, kind of, is follow where we're led to bring what our unique gifts are in the way we're meant to bring them. And however it looks. And so it's going to, I think anyway, have a lot of pieces to it, because there's not any one size fits all. And when we have all these intensities and overexcitabilities and all these things, then they all come together in unique ways every time. So I imagine that with all this constellation of things you've learned and things and the things that drive you, that in any place you are, whether it's a group you're working with or a person you run into or this podcast or your podcast or whatever, that your unique, like, it's like the soup, it all comes out a little different depending on the situation, your own energetic, and what's going on around you. So what do you do to take care of yourself? Like, how do you manage all these sensitivities and stay grounded and balanced? Because a lot of people that listen to this show and a lot of people that come into my world are like out of whack somehow. They're either stressed out or they're not paying attention, and I usually start with, you got to up your minerals, make sure you're hydrated, all kind of like that. For some people, that's like as far as they can get. Like, you want me to drink water? Really?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure that there's things. It's so true. Somebody argued with me today about that water thing. I can't drink water. I said, well, let's start there. Your brain's foggy because you're dehydrated. So what are some things you do to take care of you and all your sensitivities in this very insensitive world? Do you have any certain things that you go to, like your go-to things for your own self-care?
Well, I just took a nice swig of water as we were talking about it. I find that's important. I had that conversation with somebody yesterday his health was failing. He was having all kinds of kidney and urinary tract stuff. And I said to him, I was like, honestly, I think drinking a little bit, you probably, I can sell you a supplement or something, but for the most part, drinking a little bit more water will probably help you more than anything. And he said, oh, that's the same thing the doctor told me. I was like, all right, so let's find a process. Let's figure out how to work this into your life. First thing in the morning, just pour a big glass of water, get it all out of the way at once. And he's like, nah, I gotta have my coffee first thing in the morning. I'm like, it's okay. Like, you can have your water first and then have the coffee. I don't see that happening. Okay, well, let's work at things from there. Which, but that gets into a whole other idea of, letting people have to want to help themselves, and that's just how that goes. But I'm not going to segue away from your question. Personally, to keep myself on track, yes, there are a lot of things I do, because I find that falling off a little bit makes a huge, huge difference. That really, I've got to keep myself focused, and I've got to keep the momentum rolling, or else it's really easy to blink days by. And as far as managing sensitivity goes, I'm lucky that I found Tai Chi. And I know that there's not that many people who practice. It's still really, really understood in the West. But Tai Chi is a absolutely magical art. The Tai Chi people got it right in so many ways. And one of the amazing things that you get from a Tai Chi practice is grounding. Another that you get is a sense of focus, a sense of energetically being able to move in an integral way, and energetically being able to calm your energy down. I find with sensitives, and I'm really interested in furthering my knowledge in this world, that the waylay station is the nervous system. That nervous system, and I've had really interesting insights and meditation about this, that the nervous system is not just a physical thing, that the nervous system really, it's kind of the in between, it's the bridge between our spirits and ourselves and our thoughts and our feelings and our movements and really everything. So being able to step in and calm down that nervous system, being able to focus that nervous system, being able to release the angst in the places where that's holding. A really big thing that I teach and that I do every day is to work the spine out every single day. In fact, I've got a morning routine. I'm a big Tim Ferriss fan, and I've created a morning routine where I'll wake up, handle the essentials, and then I go and I've got this 10-minute exercise essentially that consists of bouncing, thumping, swinging, doing some spiraling motions, and what I call Taoist sun salutations. But the easiest part of that to grasp, and I am going to be putting out videos and all kinds of fun stuff that people can find on YouTube. It's totally life-changing. But the easiest thing is just to put your hands way above your head and bend forward, bending the knees, bending the spine, not pushing anything, not really stressing anything, but allowing everything to be curved, and then rolling up one vertebra at a time. And just by doing that for 2 minutes in the morning and maybe bouncing for a couple minutes to get the lymph flowing, you'd be amazed at what that can do to somebody's state. On top of that, I do a lot of different types of herbal concoctions. I think heavy metal detox is a really big thing. A lot of people in the sensitive world have heavy metal excess. And by pulling those metals out, not allowing those metals, the heavy metals like aluminum and mercury fill into the nervous system in the places where silica should go. So when you've got too many of these things, you can just think of a television that's going, it's getting really staticky because the signal's all out of whack because it's not being sent by the right kind of cord. This is like pulling that stuff out and putting a nice HDMI cord in there. The signal goes clear. People can think a little more easily. And regularly, I find these little moments, whether it's when I'm driving or when somebody's talking to me or whatever it is, to just take deep breaths to make sure and remember that calm state. And I like to do little random energetics throughout the day. I try to eat somewhat well, although that's not an always thing. And I just try to fit these things in a way that it just becomes my normal routine, my normal habit, so that it's not something challenging. I don't have to find this excess time to do it. That is literally something that whatever it is I'm up to, I can sit up a little bit straighter. I can completely relax. I can focus on my breath for a little while and find that it actually improves my state of being. It makes me feel better. It makes me better at whatever it is I'm doing while relieving the stress, which is kind of a cool thing as well.
Yes, and I like that you build it in through your whole day and make all of these things that help focus and align and calm and put together your whole being into this nice laser focus on an ongoing way. Because I think a lot of people think, oh, I have to find all this extra time in the morning or at night or whatever, and they keep trying to carve away other things that are important, and it never seems to work. So I always teach, take steps during the day. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense for the people that I work with, is to be able to say, look, you can breathe sitting anywhere. You
Right.
know, you can relax your shoulders doing just about anything. You can, focus in different ways, and so I like that that's how you do that, because I think that's really important for people to understand that it's not a, whole bunch in the morning or the afternoon, or it's not an arduous thing to live a life of being aligned and connected. It's not arduous. In fact, it makes things easier.
Right. I love that idea that it's not an arduous thing,
Yes.
that maybe it might take a little while for you to pick it up and understand it. But once you work this stuff into muscle memory, that's it. You've got it, and it will really improve anything that happens. And I find, stress relief, a lot of times people we have this inherent feeling that if we're not, clenching our fingers and tightening every single muscle in our body and that we're not getting things done as quick. And that's the perfect Tai Chi metaphor. This idea that no, just relax, pay attention, put your awareness into what you're doing. And I promise you can do whatever it is much faster, much easier. You'll go home happier.
Right. I did I think I did a chunklet video on my YouTube channel about how to get more done by slowing down. Because when you're going too fast and you're in a Ferrari engine and you got bicycle brakes, you're going to create a mess. So there's a pace to things.
Love it.
Right? Okay.
Absolutely
So
love it.
help me see how you weave this whole hip hop, poetry, music, philosophy piece into this. Like, I get the energetic part, and I love that. And I try to encourage people to really appreciate a whole way of being that's underappreciated until somebody does it, and then they realize how important it is. How do you bring your gift through your words? Because you're great. I mean, I love listening to you. And so you do philosophy and poetry and hip hop. So there's a way you have found using your intellect in your words to also bring your gift, not just with energy things. So tell me a little bit about that part of you.
Sure. So I think, first of all, and it's a core belief of mine, that when we start to clear ourselves out, when we begin to meditate, when we begin to allow the energy to flow through us, however that looks, that gifts, we all have inherent things that we're really good at. And we all have something that we can share with people around us, and will leave us more fulfilled than the people that we share it with, but them fulfilled too, of course. Just happens to be one of mine. It's funny, I discovered this. I remember being younger, like when 8 Mile came out and everybody was immediately a freestyler. I had these little glimpses into, wow, I might actually be really good at this. And then I just shut them off immediately and said, yeah, right, there's no way, you don't do that. And it was many years later, I want to say I was probably 28 at the time or so. I'm 36 now, so it's been about 6-7 years since I discovered I had anything. And I was actually sitting at a bar. I'd just come back from a 6-month yoga retreat. So I did this thing at the Isha Yoga Center up in Tennessee, and it was a 3-month super intensive program. And then I stayed 3 months and helped them do their landscaping, and just got to stay in that kind of environment. And I came back, and immediately, as soon as I was out of people watching over me and all of the discipline and the rules, yep, straight to the bar, grabbed myself a microbrew and a cocktail napkin, and I wrote down the words, "Positivity is what we need if ever we're to see the seeds we grow succeed and feed our local people's needs. It's good to be aware of veins when people bleed, but we have to sow these solid seeds to see our plants succeed." And I was like, huh, that's kind of cool. It's got a little ring to it. Well, let me, and I sat down and I wrote on this cocktail napkin, I wrote this whole poem that kind of went around it.
Wow.
And then I wrote another, and I wrote another. And the third one was actually brilliant. I'm pretty sure the third one was channeled. It was to a Bright Light Social Hour song that I absolutely love. And they do a little instrumental. And I listened to it enough times that I knew all the music by heart. And I had a hour and a half. I was waiting for somebody, so I pulled my notebook out and just filled up 4 pages with magic. And it was absolutely, especially for that time, I still go back to it and I'm like, wow, that was pretty good. but as far as the thing itself, it's something that I'm completely under. I did put out an album, and I can throw in on the show notes, cosmicmirrormusic.us. There's a download. It's a free download. You'll have to say bye now, but you can just put in 0 and it's fine. I haven't done nearly as much as I would like to. I've been doing a lot of, rebuilding and writing and just kind of figuring out. I'll have these moments of insight and then scribble something awesome down. And I have gotten to perform at a couple big festivals and cool places. But yeah, it's really the ability to reach people who wouldn't normally, maybe wouldn't normally come to a class, with a new way of thinking, a new way of being, using music to invite people into a culture that I find really beautiful, where we're not we're not ultra spiritual, we're normal people, where you just integrate certain things. We try to eat well, we try to love each other, we try to work with energy in some way, so that we're not being constantly thrown around by our minds, and making songs about that, making songs about connecting with the divine and bringing out the best side of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that went into a bit of a ramble there for a wordsmith, but anyway.
It made perfect sense to me. And I think when you made the point about, doing all the energy work and everything, it clears us out enough so that the beauty of the words and the poetry of life and the music has a place to flow through without being all jammed up. And so it makes sense to me that after all that clearing of being in the yoga place and everything, you show up back in life, so to speak, and it starts just coming through you, because it's, you're an open vessel at that point, and so that allows that to happen, and I think a lot of times people do it the opposite way, which is trying to think about it all, which is how we started the show, that, you can't think your way out of thinking. Like that's just the wrong avenue completely. So I think this is a really beautiful example. Your life is an example of somebody who's open to all the nonverbal, the energetics and everything, and then doesn't diss it, doesn't diss the intellect and the words, rather uses them in a way that actually supports the greater picture. So that's kind of neat when you think about it.
Yeah. And it feels very similar. I mean, that whole Tai Chi concept of being empty, that emptiness or softness overcomes fullness, that we don't use aggression to move, that we use this sense of softness, that the earth just can flow right through us, but within that lies great power. It's the same feeling when I'm doing one of my poems. It feels like riding a wave, where something's just flowing right through, and the softer I am with it, the more I can connect with the beat, the more I can connect with the audience, the more I can connect with, the reality of what's happening. And it totally ends up being a awareness game. It ends up being a form of Kung Fu all on its own.
Yes.
Which is cool.
That's awesome. So would you say that one of the big ways to see your gifts really unfolding is to ride the wave like that, instead of trying to fight things and create challenges out of them?
Yeah, definitely. Although I find that life is, there aren't many simple, it's nice to be able to simplify life, but life is extraordinarily complex, and if it's not a paradox, it's not true as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. Pretty much everything can be, if you can't see the exact opposite at the exact same time, you're probably not looking hard enough. So in a lot of cases, yes, I think really, if you're trying to do something in the world, you start by doing something within yourself, because within creates without. That there's a lot of ways that we can get ourselves into that energetic, into that flow state where it's easy. And I think there are certain times in life when we get to struggle a little bit more, and life tends to make it a little clear. Or times when an obstacle, a challenge will come in the way, and we can't just ride the wave easily. sometimes we've got to pull out our little handsaw and just start sawing away at that log or trying to climb over.
Yes, that's true. I love the handsaw part. I'm like listening to you and I'm like, I'm making all the pictures in my head, and it's great because it's true. I mean, to me, it's true. It's all of it. It's like a yes and to everything. Like a lot of people go, oh, well, everything looks so easy to you. I said, well, it might look easy, but it's not always easy. And sometimes the push or the thing that we have to struggle with is what also brings the great awareness and the great flow and the great ease. So it's all has value, I think. It's what are we doing with it and how are we elevating ourselves? You know, it's amazing. It's just amazing to really appreciate the whole seasons of it all and how everything goes together. Like I was teaching somebody today about yes and. It's not either or, it's yes and. It took them a while to understand what I was saying because they were so used to this black and white thinking that it had to be right or wrong, that there was no other thing. They felt so liberated when they left because they got the yes and thing. And I'm like, wow, okay, there we go. We're making headway.
Right. It's like, yes, that's absolutely true. And there's another way of thinking about it.
Yes.
The old improv trick.
Yes.
I like that though, because no is a powerful word.
Yes.
But at the same time, it stops. There's no more collaboration. There's no more, as soon as you say no, you just put a wall up. And there's sometimes when walls are the right thing, going, okay, I understand what you're trying to say. I get what the idea that you're putting across. Now, how can we work with that in a way that works? And I see that there might be this downfall with it. So what else can we do? You know, that allows, now we're working together, we're going in the same place instead of me just going, no, and that's a stupid idea.
Exactly. You got to keep the doors open because you never know what's going to come through, and that synchronicity and things like that, because it does, it pops in, right? So is there anything else that you would like to share with my audience that we haven't covered, or that you would like to say about yourself, or any projects you're working on, or anything you would like them to check out if they wanted to find you further?
Sure. So project is creating a YouTube channel and being able to get more of the video work out. I actually have I've got a song I call Thug Herbalist, where I take a classic Tupac song and I've changed the words, changed all the lyrics around to be really fun herbal, and had an interesting party how we're working on a music video, and I just have a lot of really a lot of these tools, tips, and tricks that I've picked up throughout the years, I think could be extraordinarily helpful for people. So just being able to work on getting that out. The channel will be called Avatar Awakening. However, there's nothing really there right now. It's all just in the cooking phase. That said, go to the music website and download. That's cosmicmirrormusic.us. What I would pass on is to just really go back to the breath. I mean, it's something to check out Qigong, check out Tai Chi. They're really excellent modalities, and they're probably not what you think they are. Going back to the breath, because as we talked earlier, the nervous system is in charge of everything. The way, literally everything about you and the way that you go through life, it's all nervous system. Stress, nervous system. Anxiety, nervous system. Overactive thoughts, nervous system. Depression, nervous system. And the access point into the nervous system is the way that we breathe. You can't necessarily just think your way into the nervous system and say, okay, stop being anxious. It doesn't quite work like that. But if you forget to breathe, your nervous system does it for you, and you've got conscious control over your breath. So it ends up being this beautiful back door. There's so many really simple things that you can do, like just taking really big, deep breaths, training your breath to go down, all the way down to the kidneys, will wash away a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, and just paying attention, watching the way that you breathe for a couple days to the rest of your life can be really a absolutely phenomenal phenomenal practice. So that's that. If there was one just simple thing that people could take away from this talk, especially people who were a little bit oversensitive, it would be really, really, really pay attention to the way that you breathe. Put that focus into nice, slow, deep ones. And the second one would be pay attention to the way that you hold yourself. That there's a big difference between, if you hold yourself in a really depressed way, you'll probably start feeling depressed. If you put a smile on your face, you'll probably start feeling happy. If you stand nice and alert, but allow everything to relax, you'll probably be alert and relaxed. And that really, that's between those two things, it's very, very possible to shift our state. It's very, very possible to, as a sensitive, to ground, to just bring the energy and go, okay, I feel it here. I want to send that down a little bit. Let me calm that energy down. You can even take your hands and put them on both sides of you and then bring them together in prayer pose and use that motion to try to feel all the vibrations going to right to this one place. And any of your people, if you're interested in going deeper with this, you can always reach out to me. My email is innerqi-medicine. That's INNERQI medicine. I'd love to serve. I'd love to work with you. And innerqi-medicine.com is my website. So you can kind of check out what I'm up to and all that fun stuff.
That's awesome. Some of that, there's some internet connections. So if you can email me all that information, I will make sure it's in the show notes, because some of it bleeped out a little bit. And I want to make sure everybody can have a way to click to find you. And I want to thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and taking all of your time with us and all of that neat stuff. And maybe we'll do another show at another time, because I think it'd be really fun. I just want to thank you for being here, Brian. I appreciate your time, and I'm sure everybody got a lot out of it. I know I did, just listening to you and connecting with you. And I think that what you're bringing to the world really is heaven on earth. And so keep cultivating it. It's really amazing.
Thank you so much, Diane. I really appreciate the opportunity to come back on. And yeah, you get to come on and be a guest on our podcast. It's the Momentology podcast on the Pronoia Now Network, which is basically an entire network of people bringing the idea that the world is working for us, which sounds like it aligns perfectly with what you guys are up to.
Yes, it is. And so I would love to do that. And I want to thank everybody for listening. And don't forget to visit our Someone Gets Me Facebook page, and also go to visionsapplied.com to find out more about what we're doing with live webinars and our local events.
Are you tired of searching for someone who understands you? Join our Facebook group, Someone Gets Me. In this group, you will be able to connect with others who are intense, sensitive, smart, talented, and wanting to be understood. Diane shares her insights and teachings, and you can connect with others. Join today.